Tomorrow, Canada's Minister of National Defence and the country's top soldier will apologize to survivors of sexual misconduct in the military. The Canadian Armed Forces first made that promise a year ago. The call for an apology was proposed as part of a 2019 class action lawsuit filed by some survivors. Some survivors see this step as a major milestone, but others say it does not go far enough. Leah West served in the Canadian Armed Forces for 10 years and says she was sexually assaulted by a senior ranking officer in 2008. I spoke with her on Friday to get her thoughts on the apology. And Leah West joins us now. Nice to see you, Leah.
Thanks for having me.
What do you want to hear in this apology on Monday?
I want to hear an acknowledgement of the government's failure to do something about this. It's not enough to just say I'm sorry. I want to hear that they were told and they did nothing and they should have been doing something. This is not a new problem. This is not a new revelation. This is not a new crisis. But it's taken until 2021 to actually do something about it. And that's what I really want an apology for. The failure to act until now.
A lot of other survivors, again, think the apology matters, but also want to see the action attached to it. If there's an apology and then not much else happens, will it still matter to you, I guess?
No, it is. Actions speak louder than the words, right? This is the classic saying, everybody knows it. And saying I'm sorry and saying we're going to do better, and then not putting the resources and the effort behind it and the support to the military leaders who are going to need to make those changes really on the ground. If that doesn't come after this apology, the apology is meaningless, right? We all know that it's one thing to say you're sorry, but you have to change your behavior as a result of acknowledging failure. And that in this case is going to come with a lot of effort and a lot of resources and time, and it's going to be painful. And people need to be willing to do that work and give their resources to the Canadian Armed Forces and the people who need it to make these changes. Yeah. And that needs to come alongside this apology.
Maybe you could just remind people who don't know your story a little bit of what happened to you. I think it was back in 2008, and why we're talking to you about this today.
I was sexually assaulted. I was a junior officer in my first 18 months in my unit, and was at a house party with all other officers from my regiment, but I was the only woman. It was not uncommon to be the only woman around at the time, given my my career path. And I don't really know what happened. I was having a drink one moment, and the next moment I woke up the next morning in a house, in a bed, that I don't have any capacity to say that I consented to being there and to having what happened. And I went to work, tried to do my job, and ended up passing out in the bathroom, and was subsequently taken to the hospital where, the MPs kind of forced me to take a rape kit. And then rather than speaking to me after they got the result, they spoke to my chain of command. And it was ultimately a chain of command who decided me how I wanted to pursue things. And I told them what I believed they wanted to hear, which was I didn't want them to do anything, because I couldn't possibly imagine what that would mean for me and my career. And, being one of few women in that environment, how that would just make my life harder. So I did nothing. And I can honestly say that since coming forward with my story, I've had a lot of people come forward and say that they were sorry that happened to me, but I haven't had anyone involved come forward and acknowledge what's happened. So I think that really does show how hard it is going to be to root out this behavior.
It's also not that long ago. Sometimes we talk about these incidents and it sounds like they're a long time ago, but your experience is not that long ago. I don't have a lot of time left, but I wonder what would have what would have changed, what would have helped you in that moment? I mean, other than the chain of command, sort of going to the chain of command, what would have made the difference for you in trying to get justice and something, some sort of resolution for you?
I think if just even having an acknowledgement that there was a path to pursue if this kind of behavior took place. Like I didn't even consider it because it wasn't on my radar. I wasn't aware. So knowing what resources exist. So Sexual Military Resource Center would have been important for me back then. And having the person who asked me what I want to do not be my boss would have been really helpful. But awareness, and if I had a leader who, instead of asking me, told me what my resources were and said, I'll support whatever you decide, right? All of that would have been tremendously helpful.
What will you be thinking of when this apology happens? What will be in your head as you're listening?
Probably all the other people I know that are listening out there too. It's going to be hard to hear. It's going to be challenging, I think, for all of us.
Yeah.
This entire year has been challenging for everyone who's been dealing with all of this stuff. A really trying year. And so I'll be thinking about everybody else that I'm sharing that moment with.
Leah, thank you for sharing. As you say, I know it's been a challenging year. It's challenging every time you talk about this, and I appreciate your courage and you being willing to share it again with us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.